Hello and welcome to the Freo Big Footy Podcast, Episode 66. This week we'll go back and have a look at the game last week versus the Giants, where Fremantle were able to extend their lead out against the other teams in the competition, getting a game and a half lead on second placed West Coast. We'll have a couple of look at a couple of key re-signings during the week, and then we'll have a look at the upcoming clash against the Saints at Etihad. Joining us this week is our usual resident Victorian expert, Seppo. How are you, mate?
I am very good, and it's amazing to think we've gone past round 18 and we're into 19, and we're now looking at the final few games of the season. It's certainly gaining pace now as we get towards the end.
Yeah, for sure. And this week, Seppo, Fremantle continued their winning ways, kicking 12 goals, 12-84 to 9-9-63 in a very sort of scrappy type affair, where Fremantle never looked really threatened, but at the same time never really broke the Giants either at the same time.
Yeah, it was a certainly interesting game, and I suppose the margin probably flattened the Giants in the end. I think we sort of dominated without really hitting on the scoreboard. I know we kicked 12-12, but it would have been nice to have a couple of those misses converted into goals, so at least the scoring opportunities are there. I can't remember how many of those were... Obviously, some of like Alex Pearce's kicks didn't even make the distance, and some of the others sort of went out in the full. Or
Daniel Pearce had a touch from 10 metres out.
Yeah, so there was a couple of instances there where you can sort of just fine-tune it a bit. But definitely it seemed in the third quarter, I think when we got on a roll and kicked 3 or 4 goals in a row, it looked like we were going to blow them out of the park. We sort of let them get back into it and win the last quarter, which is a bit of a shame, but actually, at this stage, it's just glad, especially with teams like Hawthorn and West Coast having the draw. It's just great to get the 4 points at this stage. So it doesn't really matter. We won by 21, but glad to get the 4 points.
Yeah, percentage really doesn't come into it for us now, and it probably hasn't for the last 4 to 5 weeks, Seppo. We're never going to be able to catch Hawthorn or even West Coast, given the gap in the percentage was close to 30%. So it was a bit disappointing. Probably the key out for the game was Zach Dawson, who copped 2 weeks, and probably lucky he only copped 2 weeks for a Judd-like elbow on Jeremy Cameron, and he'll be out for a couple of weeks, and probably just throws our structure out a little bit, because probably one of the highlights you talked about earlier, Seppo, was Pearce was moved forward, and there'd been talk this week from the guys down and watching training that he'd been played in a forward role, and apart from those first couple of kicks where he didn't fail to make the distance, he looked quite good down there.
Yeah, he was certainly moving well, and sort of didn't get in Pav's way too much and let Main and Walters do their job as well up there. So I think it was really good to see his effort and his intent. He seemed a bit more hungry for the ball, and I think we saw that in the last few games he's played down back. How he was, like we've mentioned in the previous podcast, he's not scared to take the game on and got some big cojones, so great to see him go forward. And he's obviously range is around 40 metres, so anything beyond the 40-metre mark, he might struggle to make the distance. But good to see him finally get the goal after 3 attempts, and it was good to see Walters hit a bit of a patch as well and kick 4 goals himself. So starting to get a bit of firepower back, and obviously it was mentioned during the Fox call that when Freo kicks 12 goals, we're pretty much 100% wins. So, and we got to the 12 just.
It was. Yeah, Alex Pearce's kicking style was pretty. You can see it quite often in the forward. You don't see it too often sort of displayed in the back line, because he generally doesn't kick too far and sort of plays within himself. But you can see he doesn't have much of a follow through. Seppo probably looks like he's got 40-year-old hamstrings there. So it's interesting to see this week if he sort of starts kicking through the ball. He just looked like he was just trying to stub it, and rather than sort of kicking through. So hopefully we'll see him follow through on the ball a little bit better this week and get them through the big sticks. For me, the highlight of the game probably, Seppo, was probably the ball use of Stephen Hill in particular. His kicking during the game was just outstanding, and every time he had the ball, he not only sort of hit the target, but looked really, really dangerous, and was a clear standout for me as the best, probably one of the best on the ground, if not the best on the ground on the day.
Yeah, 32 touches for the man number 32 on the back was really good. But I thought there was probably some other players like Spur and Mundy and Neil, even though Neil probably wasn't operating at a good efficiency. I think those guys got a lot of the ball and helped push it forward. And I think Spur was actually played probably one of his better games for the whole year down back, and actually really helped us drive off the half back line.
Yeah, and once again, we got a bit of key drive. I know there was a bit of talk on the week, on the boards this week, Seppo, about Sheridan's game in terms of some people thought he was really good and other people thought he was butchered it. And I thought he provided good drive, and I think having him in that back half is certainly given us a little bit more run than what we had prior to the year. And he certainly is not afraid to back himself. You'd obviously like to see his disposal efficiency improve a little bit, but I think at the same time he takes those chances and can open up the game for us a bit as well.
Yeah, it's good to see him also attacking through the corridor a bit. And I think he likes to kick it more than he does handball, and got out into the space a bit, got a couple in uncontested marks and inside 50. So he's sort of showing a bit like what we said that Sutcliffe was doing last year. He's starting to step up and get some, bit more of the ball, because I think people aren't happy if he's getting 12 or 13 touches. Now that he's getting closer to 25. That's really good.
And the other really sort of pleasing thing, I think, for Freo fans at the game, Seppo, was the performance of Lachie Weller coming on for his first game in the last quarter and got 8 touches and looked very damaging and used the ball extremely well.
Yeah, he's a very attacking-minded player. You could just see he was getting to attacking positions on the ground and didn't get much opportunity with that, subbing on at that late stage of the game. But he got the same amount of touches as Jeremy Cameron, who was out there for most of it and didn't get subbed off after that the blood nose, which was quite interesting. But he definitely looked at home, and obviously might be a bit harder to compete on the inside against some bigger bodies, but certainly out in the final quarter of the game as things opened up, and you could see the pace really dropped off from the Giants. Probably around middle of the third quarter, they really just suddenly hit a brick wall and the game opened up for us, and that's where guys like Weller and even Hill and Sutcliffe and Crozier really started to get the ball moving at quick speed.
Yeah, Crozier, I think, wasn't 100% on the game on the weekend. Just sitting, because I'm sort of pretty much right behind the interchange bench there, Seb, and I think saw him throw up a couple of times, so I'm not sure he was 100% out there on that game, but and didn't probably have quite the impact he did against Richmond. So I'm sure he'll be keen to bounce back this week. Looking at the game, what do you think there's been a lot of talk as well about Mzungu, why he hasn't been in or whether he should be in? What you're obviously looking at it from a distance, Seppo. What do you think of his performance during the week?
It was a bit of a miss for me in terms of actually watching him play. I sort of didn't really notice too much of him out there, and even just looking back on it now, can't remember too many moments in the game.
Yeah, I think his ball use probably just let him down a bit, and I think that's probably been one of the knocks and why he probably hasn't been playing much before this sort of year. And I think he'll still sort of be on that cusp of the group, along with our usual resident sort of ins and outs, like the likes of De Boer and sort of Subin, who sort of seems to be in the gun for most people each week.
I think back to last year was when Mzungu was playing really well. He was dropping in the hole and doing what Ibbotson was doing with a couple of nice overhead marks, intercepting, running out, and even getting on the scoreboard a bit when he pushed forward. And kind of sort of neither of those, sort of trademarks moved from him. So he's either playing a different role or just getting lost a bit and not found his, spot in the team to be that important cog, because he's definitely probably had some really good roles last year. He just probably hasn't found that role. It's either been taken over by someone else or they're asking him to do some different things this year. So it's interesting with Tendai.
Yeah, it'd be interesting as well to see with the likes of Weller if he gets another game this week, and could be playing up against his brother. Because the other likes of Daniel Pearson that got a lot of the ball, but unfortunately did tend to butcher it a little bit at times as well. And I know he does give us a lot of drive inside 50, but you're hoping that those sort of those sort of guys like Weller puts in good performances, that they will certainly put the pressure on those guys to lift their game, and particularly their ball use, which has been a concern for us for a number of months probably by now. It's funny when you talk about that, Seppo, it's been a concern, and yet we're still 15-2, and how quickly you forget when you used to sort of sit there a few years ago and we were sort of 2-15 and pretty miserable. So certainly, considering we're not playing that well and we're still managing to get the wins, it's really a good sign for us.
Really good.
Any other sort of points you want to bring up before we sort of move on from this one?
No, other than the fact that Pav seems to be back. I know he probably didn't hit the scoreboard enough, and I think he had a couple of close misses, I think, to the right-hand side. I think he's probably over that little injury or sickness or whatever he was carrying early on for the last couple of rounds, and I think he's going to be, still to hit the heights of, I think, what he's capable of yet. So I think towards the end of this year, if he's over everything, not sick, not hurt, he's going to be really good for our September chances.
Yeah, that's the key thing. We've got plenty of improvement left in us, and not just in ball use, but the way we're moving the ball. And once we sort of get Michael Johnson back as well, and that back line settles down a little bit, it should certainly give us a good 4 to 5 weeks building up into the finals. And I think we'll get a pretty good test this week with the talls of McCartan, Josh Bruce, and Riewoldt playing for the Saints as well.
Mm.
All right, Seppo, a couple of key re-signings for us this week as well.
Yeah, it was great to see that young Blakely and Taberner have both signed on with a 2 and 1 year deal, both setting them out to 2017. So it's good that we've locked away someone like Taberner, and even though he's not out there in the side, you can see from what he did earlier in the year, and saw Freo put up some article saying that he's one of our more accurate kick for goals. So great to see some young talent locked away, and when you look at the remaining players that have expiring at the end of this year, there's more of the older mix now, and there's only a couple of young guys I want to probably lock away with, Sheridan, Crozier, Aptness, and Alex Pearce and Gray himself. So
and Clark's the other one as well, isn't he?
Yeah, so there are a bit of the older types there, but at least those first, second, third year players, they'll be keen to lock some of them away as well, and hopefully we don't lose anyone to the eastern states. And yes, first of the hopefully many signings of that younger group that's just come through and extending them out.
Yeah, and I can't. You feel it very unlikely that many of those guys, unless they're not getting an opportunity to play, would leave. I mean, it's very difficult to leave a sort of successful side. I don't know that some guys do, but it'll be interesting to see how Freo's list management goes during the week this week. Seppo, it seemed that every free agent, uncontracted player who was over about 190 centimetres was coming to Fremantle, with Carlisle and Jay Schultz and Charlie Dixon, and they're all in the mix. So we certainly haven't got enough room to fit them all in.
Yeah. I think that the most likely type, I think that they've been talking about, seems to have some merit as Schultz, and he'll be someone fantastic if we can get the likes of him over to Freo. And I think there's a couple others that have kind of been ruled out, or rumours and things that have probably ruled out a lot of other tall targets. But you'd think we'd, after years and years and balancing things right, that they can work out exactly how to get one of them across. And I think with what we've got on at the moment, unless we wait a couple of years for Aptness and Taberner and say Alex Pearce to come on, we're not going to have that piece of the puzzle filled by drafting within.
Yeah, I think that's a key point as well, Seppo, is like, even if it's even someone like Schultz, even though he's 31, if he keeps the window open for another 1 to 2 years, all of a sudden it gives those guys like Aptness not the requirement. And I know that you want to see whether they can do it or not. And I mean, Aptness had a chance last year, and unfortunately, probably if he wasn't injured this year, would have got another opportunity to play up forward. But the great thing is the likes of, from what we've seen of Pearce so far, is that he has got the ability to go forward and back, and gives us a genuine swingman who can play in both forward and defence.
Mm.
All right, moving on. Seppo, going on this week to the Saints game at Etihad Stadium on Sunday afternoon. It'll be a game I'm actually going to go over for, so hopefully we'll see a bit better performance than what we've had in the last couple of games against St Kilda at Etihad, even though I know one of the games we had our sort of Peel reserve side, but last year we had a pretty good side and got smacked over there, so we'll certainly be trying to improve on that performance. So do you want to go through the ins and outs for us, Seppo?
Yeah, at the moment it's the Sunday game, so we've only got the squad here. So for Saints, they bring in Gilbert, Riewoldt, Loney, Ross, Akers, Wright and Shenton. And out of their side comes the young Tasmanian Eli Templeton, Webster with a groin, Longer, Soreness, and Dunstan with soreness as well. Going over to the Freo side, we've got into the squad Connor Blakely, Zach Clark, Alex Silvani, and Clancy Pearce in the big white shorts. Out comes Dawson with his suspension. And obviously, it's interesting we don't have Fife in there, and obviously they've stated he's going to get him rested and hopefully right for the Derby next week, which I think is a smart move. And let's just hope without bringing him to the side that it pays off and he gets the rest he needs. And there's a long wait until the Derby, so let's hope it pays off. And it's just having a look at the milestones for this game. We've got Sean Dempster, a small defender on the other side, playing his 200th game, and it always seems to happen. We've probably had about 4 or 5 big milestones like this come against us this year, and not sure how it works out for the opposition most of the time. But going down to the umpires, we've got O'Gorman, which is a new one. I don't really recognise his name, which is a good sign. We've got old Razor Ray Chamberlain, Ben Ryan, and the emergency is Jordan Bannister as well. So it's at least we don't have Lee Fisher doing this game, which is good to see.
Yeah, it would certainly be an interesting one, seeing his history with Ross Lyon and particularly in our games in that regard. Do you see it just being a straight swap like for like? I know that Silvani played one half, I think, or played limited reserves, or probably a half of a reserves game. Seppo would be a big stretch for him to come straight into Etihad, but judging by the fact that St Kilda are going to go in tall with Bruce, McCartan and Riewoldt, if we want to have sort of, there might even be times when we may have to play Pearce back as well if Ibbotson is under the pump a bit. Can you see it just being a straight swap like for like?
I suppose it all depends on how Freo want to go with the matchups, because they can probably leave Dawson out, maybe bring in Silvani, or throw in an extra midfielder, which might leave us a bit small and a big job. And then Saints can probably stretch us if they're talking about bringing Membry in as well. He's almost like a third tall as well. And I know they've dropped Longer the ruckman, and they're relying on Hickey to carry most of the load. And you think one of the others will probably slip in there and pinch it to help out. So it will be interesting to see how they go, because you think Sandy and Griff can carry the load in the ruck, but it's just how tall we go with our defence. Because I know Ibbotson can probably handle Bruce and likes to play a bit taller, but that combination of McFarlane and Pearce on Riewoldt and McCartan might be enough, but they might decide they need that extra one and bring Silvani in. But I'd be happy, and I could see the reason why they wouldn't. And they might give the young kind of Blakely a debut, or even bring Clancy Pearce back in to take another defender and make Ibbo play a bit taller. So there are a couple of different options depending on which way they want to go.
Yeah, they have definitely a developing squad, St Kilda. A couple of their younger players, they look, Hugh Gard's got a game this week, and a couple of their younger guys, like Jack Loney, Jack Sinclair. I mean, Jack Billings not playing, but he's shown bits as well this year. And even the young likes of Blake Acres, who was from West Perth, Seb Ross is showing a little bit at the times. But they've still got that smattering of experience with the likes of Dempster, Fisher, Gilbert, Jaron Geary, who's a good player. So it's certainly not going to be a walk in the park for us, Seppo, that's for sure. And even though in saying that though, even though we do have the likes of, we really have 3 All-Australians out with Ballantyne, Johnson and Fife. If we really do have any sort of premiership credentials, as they say, this should be one game that we should win.
Yeah, and I suppose it's hard to look at the past 2 results and St Kilda winning by 70 and 58 points or something. I think the last 2 times they played them. That's probably in the back of Freo's minds, and I think Mundy made some comment in the midweek saying that, last time they came across, they were probably acting a bit cocky and just expecting to get the result done, and Saints obviously came out and really shocked us. So I know they don't have the same type of players like Stanley, and I can't remember who else out there that did the job, but at least this time that we've probably going to be more attuned, and at least you think the guys are probably saying you get the 4 points here and we'll be sitting well for the rest of the year. So let's just hope that the effort and the mentality of these guys going in there are expecting, I think even just Saints, even though they lost to Port last week by a fair margin, it wasn't a close game, but I think these guys will be realising that Saints have played some good footy this year and scared some big sides, so they're no walkover.
Yeah, if you look at the game last year, as you said, the likes of Reece Stanley always seems to have a career game against us with 19 disposals and 14 marks and 3 goals, and Riewoldt kicked 4 as well. And he's probably got a few injury concerns of his own, coming off a calf injury, which can always be a little bit tricky. So he may not probably be pushing out as much as he would like either with full fitness. And I think even the likes of Farron Ray and a couple of those guys last year who just really had cracking games aren't in this week with Farron and I mean Schneider is playing. Well, he's certainly listed in the extended squad, so he may come in. But yeah, I think they'll be switched on and looking to cement that top spot because obviously one of those second or third teams won't win this week, Seppo, with the Hawks and Eagles playing each other as well.
It's certainly quite interesting how the permutations of the top four and what it meant to finals as we're in round 19 now, and before you know it, round 23 is played and we're into finals. So it's goes very quick, and yeah, this result's going to be huge, and I think we still got enough players out there that are competing for a spot as well, because it gets serious now and people want to be in there at the right time of year, and there's probably some of these younger guys that young Lockie Weller and Blakely, let's say if he gets a game, that they'll be trying their heart out and trying to learn the craft amongst the seniors and hoping that they can stay in, and it's putting pressure because, like I said, with those names missing, Johnson could be back soon, Ballantyne could be back for finals, and Fife's got to come back into the squad, and there's probably some others that are probably sitting on the outside like Clancy and Clark as well that probably I reckon they should be part of the seniors that are got to make their way in. So at least it puts pressure on some of the guys that have come into the side recently, like Griffin and I suppose Mzungu and the guys that have sort of made their way back in, and even Alex Pearce that's got that extended run because it's very hard to drop some of them now if they start to have really good games.
Yeah, and I think the key thing will be in this game, Seppo, is probably how well Fremantle take control of the sort of more experienced Saints players and how the Saints youngsters cope against we don't have too many sort of rookies in there. And last week, if even the game against Port Adelaide, they had a number of scoring shots which they missed early, but the likes of Membray didn't get a lot of the ball, or Mackenzie. I think they had probably 6 or 7 players that didn't get more than 10 possessions for the game. So, and I know possessions aren't everything, but you're still relying then on a lot of guys to do a lot of the work, and probably the likes of Stephen and Armitage have been real mainstays for them this year, and they'll probably have to have cracking games again this week to be able to get the points, I think, if they wanted to.
And it's going to be interesting to see if there's a chance if, Lockie Weller gets a game that he lines up against his brother. If he runs into the midfield, it probably won't obviously be a matchup that they throw the magnets onto the board to say, brother on brother, but it might just work out. And it's always good to see the, Hill and now Weller and Weller, another combination of brothers out there. They get to play against each other. And it's even just quite interesting having a look at all the names of the Saints and how many Jacks. I know there's no Jack Billings out there, but they've got Jack Stephen, Jack Nunes, Jack Sinclair, Jack Loney. I think there might be one other Jack out there on their list, or he's not playing, but it's
Jack Billings, I think.
Yeah, so it's the team of Jacks, and even just having a look at Dylan Robertson. I think he's the ex-Freo plays, found a bit of form, I think, and playing a really good role for them now, and certainly improved since he's left us a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, most people were pretty high on Robertson, especially with his skills and stuff, and obviously having a baby at that young age, does upset the, rhythms and all that sort of stuff, and just getting used to a new lifestyle. So, but good luck to him over there, and hopefully he doesn't have too good a game this week, but does all right for himself in the future. The other, St Kilda obviously trying to try and stretch Fremantle, so the midfield pressure is going to be pretty important, and you'd think that St Kilda are probably going to look for a bit more of a running, stunning, or open affair, Seppo, and Fremantle will probably be trying to shut it down a little bit. But at the same time, if they're going to be trying to improve their ball use, it'd be interesting to see which way Ross Lyon goes with the game plan, whether to be that bit more defensive or whether he does sort of push it out to a sort of open affair.
I think he likes, and I think we've seen the games at Etihad have been probably a bit more high scoring for us. And I know he always talks about a quick, fast deck and how high scoring these games can be. So I think we'll be looking for a big score and playing really quick. And I think this is where, people like Hill and Sheridan could probably have ripping games, and even Daniel Pearce, providing he can hit the targets and kick straight, will be really important for us to move the ball quickly and catch the Saints players and then hopefully the younger guys out of position and off guard and really put pressure on them and turn and move the ball quickly. So, it's what we've been wanting to see, that we were doing really well at the start of the year, first few rounds, and I think we're just starting to see signs of it. They said their effort's good and a bit of this execution, and maybe this might be a game that we get a run of form in and play really well. Have a look at the interchange. The way it's listed here with Barlow and Neal, you'd expect them to play, and they always seem to start on the bench. Who would you pick out of the others to make the final squad? And obviously, I'm not sure if when the Peel game is on this weekend, but they might fly one, possibly two across as well, just to be safe.
Well, it's a Saturday afternoon game for Peel this week against South Fremantle. You're right, Seppo. There's no doubt that Barlow and Neal will play. I think Lockie Weller certainly didn't do his chances any harm last week. He came on, he provided a bit of spark. 8 touches in a quarter. You can't ask for really too much more. And not only they were 8 pretty good touches as well. He sort of, some of his kicking out of the back line, and even the one he kicked to Griffin in the forward line was also pretty good. So you'd have to think he's sort of played himself in at least for another week, whether he gets another game as a sub. Sometimes you can play too well and end up being a super sub type role, but
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised at all if he does. I can't see Blakely playing this week, Seppo. I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if Blakely will probably get a game when I reckon they'll rest Monday against Melbourne for our home game, and I reckon that'll be when Blakely gets his chance.
Or would you have a look at, say, Silvani come in like for like with Dawson, and they might just switch around, Lockie stay at home, play a full game for Peel, and Blakely or the sub. Do you reckon it could work out that? Because he doesn't seem to be an impact player, but you just wonder if they give him a taste and bring him on the last quarter.
Well, I think based on the fact that they're going to have those tools, I think they're going to have to go with Silvani. Bruce, right, Rewalt would have to go. McFarlane would probably have to go with Rewalt, you'd have to think. And therefore, if you're looking, Ibbotson does play tall, and he probably might be all right on McCartan unless they try and isolate him in the goal square. And that's when, whether Pearce would then have that role, whether Pearce would play on Bruce or Silvani. I think you just got to go like for like, and you've got to back your training in. And if Silvani's been training, and even though I know he's only had half a game, the likes of McCartan, he's not going to be a huge mover up and down the ground. He's going to pretty much stay home. So I don't think it's going to affect Silvani too much in that regard, in terms of his hammy. So I would envisage they'll go like for like, just a straight swap Dawson for Silvani, and they'll probably leave. I can't see Clark getting a game unless Griff gets dropped, and I can't see that happening. Would be very unlikely, especially.
I think Griffin showed enough from last week to warrant another combo, and I suppose they would have been pretty open or point out, if it's time for Sandlands to rest, and we have a combination of Griffin and Clark, because we haven't seen that one for a while either. So that might be another possible mix, but you just wonder if it's going to be before the end of the year when Sandy gets a rest.
If that happens, I think that'll probably be the last week of the season, Seppo.
23.
Yeah, you can't see him playing. You have to play him next week against Nat Nui. Then I think we've got
North Melbourne the week after, and
you can't
Melbourne
see him
at
playing
home
against Goldstein.
Yep.
And it depends on other results as well. But I think they want to make sure that they've locked it in. You just wouldn't play him that last week. You give him the rest against Port Adelaide.
Yeah. And for travel as well. Just makes
exactly
sense.
Right. And then you come into the final. He's had a week's be refreshed and that sort of thing, and hopefully you do the same with McFarlane. You give him a rest somewhere in those 3 to 4 games, and I think that's probably what they're going to be looking at, is how they can sort of keep winning, but also give those guys a bit of a break when they need to.
I read on the forum today that Silvani, the reason why he had limited game time was because of the obviously the KPIs they set for the GPS, and I think he'd gone too hard too soon, and they had to restrict him for how much, not the fact that he was hurt or anything, but the fact that he ran too much or killed it. And it sounds like Silvani to me, so it's probably good news if that's the reason why he was on restricted game time the other day.
Yeah, and the thing with Silvani, is that he wears his heart on his sleeve, so if you put him in there, he's certainly not going to hold back or not give you 100% when he's out there. So I think it'll be just a straight swap like for like, and I would imagine that Ross Lyon probably would have peeled the paint off with Dawson during the week for that stupidity that he showed with that elbow to Cameron, because it's certainly not a well, not a good look for one thing, and it certainly probably upsets our chance to rest the likes of McFarlane coming into the finals as well.
Because he certainly looked good. Because I know there's a lot of people complaining about his spoils and some of his decisions, obviously with that elbow. But I thought he provided a bit more physicality in the back line, and I certainly enjoyed the couple of moments out there with Dawson. He just seemed to make our spine a bit stronger, and maybe we'll see it with Silvani coming back. But I think it would just be great if we could actually get him or get that combination of Johnson back in there with possibly Alex Pearce as well. I don't know if we can probably warrant to have all three depending on the opponents, but yeah, it'll be a good time to obviously get McFarlane rested soon. Likewise with Sandy.
Well, we usually go with three talls. Even last year, we've always generally played with the three talls, Seppo, when you've got Johnson, McFarlane, and Dawson, and then we had like Ibbo or Johnson playing that. Like Ibbotson would quite often play the third tall, which allowed Johnson to play the loose man. So you'd have to think, and then I think it really, for Pearce, it's going to come down to what he does in the next probably 4 to 5 weeks, and it's whether, I think Ross Lyon knows what Taberner is going to give you.
Yeah.
So they're going to probably have a look at Pearce and say, well, you've got 3 to 4 weeks, and you can play your way into playing into a forward role, and if he's not able to continue to do that, well then I think that Tabs will come back in. And then, it's up to whether the match committee, whether they decide to keep Pearce down back or whether they go with that more experienced trio of Dawson, McFarlane, and
Johnson. Yeah.
Johnson. And, you'd have to play McFarlane and Johnson, so it's really going to come down to Dawson versus Pearce. And
Silvani as well. Yeah.
I'm sure the board will go into a bit of a meltdown if Dawson does get the nod over Pearce, but, that's a decision that will have to be made, but there's still a fair bit of time down the track, and Silvani will obviously be trying to push his name forward as well if he can get a run at it for the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Any other highlights or matchups? I think the David Armitage matchup should be a pretty key one for the game. So it'll be interesting to see how Ross Lyon goes with it, whether he just uses a head-to-head matchup maybe against Mundy, or whether he sort of plays a bit more lockdown with the likes of Subin or
Mzungu even. I think maybe I probably missed it last week. I can't remember the result, the role that Mzungu had, but Mzungu's a good runner, and I know Armitage covers a lot of ground and racks up a lot of balls, so that might be an opportunity for. I know we've probably been rotating different people like Mzungu and Clancy Pearce and Subin through those sort of soft tag roles, but it might be an opportunity for Mzungu to get the run against him, and probably the best midfielder out there for the Saints, along with Stevens. So it's a good opportunity for a player like Subin or Mundy to go head to head, or give Zung the big role on him, because it's certainly going to be a lot harder. And without Fife in there, we're not going to be winning the ball as much as we'd expect. But still, with obviously Sandy, with Mundy and Barlow and Neil, and the combinations we've been having, that we'll still win our fair share of the ball.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you play Mzungu on there, Seppo, then it does mean that you're going to play, because Armitage is going to start in the centre just about all game. So then it does mean that you're going to have to play Mzungu in that centre, with that centre group, and it's probably not an ideal situation. The fact that Sandilands should have a pretty dominant result against, it should be pretty too strong for Hickey, and even more so when Griffin comes in. That means that we can probably make sure that the ball doesn't go towards Armitage in those ruck hit-outs. We can sort of direct the ball towards, and not to downgrade anything like Stephen or Lockie Weller or those guys, but Armitage is clearly the best sort of midfielder they have, and that's probably where they may struggle a little bit. I think they've got a lot of, their back line's pretty solid, and I think they've got a good forward line, but their midfield with the likes of Savage and Armitage and Weller and those sort of guys probably, and even like if you use Ross and Akers, are probably not up to the likes of our second tier in the midfield. But in saying that, last year they had a few other guys coming in as well, like Farron Ray and those sort of guys who aren't playing in this game, and so it'll be definitely an interesting game. What are your tips for the game, Seppo? What do you think it's going to be?
Oh, I think it's going to be a similar result to last week. A bit more high scoring, but probably around the 25 or 26 points. I think this is not going to be a blowout, but I expect us to win. There's no way. Famous last words. I can't see us losing this game, but I don't see us smashing them either. So I think they'll get the result, right things go our way, and put me down for 25.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty close to that. And, I was thinking more like, that 5 goals. So around that 30 to 35 point mark. I know that, as you said, the guys will be coming out to I think they'll try and get an early lead, Seppo, and pretty much control the game from there. And, I don't think they'll want to be putting in, as you said, percentage is not really a crucial aspect for us at the moment. So it really comes down to the fact that you want to get the 4 points, bank them, and get away with, hopefully no injuries. And that's, and then you just look to next week as well, which will obviously be a cracking game against West Coast.
Yeah, and it's obviously interesting because it will be the last game of the round. We'll have seen all the results before us, but it'll just be interesting to see if the result does go that way of obviously with Richmond playing Adelaide, that result might shape the top 4. Obviously, if Richmond make it in or not. Obviously, if Adelaide win, it could be hard for Richmond to make it. And obviously, the Hawks and West Coast, I'm not sure what's more favourable for us in terms of either sealing the top spot or even just picking our opponent who's going to finish 4th. So it'll be quite interesting to see when we get there and what it means even for the Derby the week after.
Yeah, I think it's probably better for us, to be honest, if I know you look at it one of 2 ways. If Hawks end up second, Seppo, we may not necessarily see them until the GF. If they end up third, then they come over and play West Coast first week, then they go back home, and then they would come and play us in the prelim. So travelling 2 times in 3 weeks is, especially for a lot of their older guys, would certainly not be the cushy run. I think if they get the cushy run at the MCG, they'll be certainly a lot more difficult to beat than playing them 2 or 3 times in. And that's not to downgrade the other sides, but they're going to be clearly the team to beat. Even though last week Richmond had a win, I still think they're probably the side that is going to go in favourites. All right. Any other news you want to bring up, Seppo, this week before we finish up?
No, other than the fact that I look forward to seeing you over here for this game on Sunday.
Yeah, no, it should be good. And if also the big game next week, Seppo, the Derby is. If we've got any guys who are listening in Melbourne and they're keen to get a kick. Yeah,
we're still short of probably a couple of numbers, and we're looking forward to anyone that can don some boots and run around in a Freo jumper kicking the ball with us against the East Coast Eagles. So we're looking for you. So if you want to get involved, hit me up on the forum, and we'll get a spot for you out there.
And where is the game, Seppo? Just in case any of the people want to come down and have a bit of a look.
You want to come down and watch it? It's at Fleming Park in Brunswick. It's going to be played on the Sunday before the Derby, a couple of hours before. So I think it's bounce downs at 2 o'clock, and we'll be playing and obviously going to the Great Northern afterwards to watch the game. So if you can't make the game and just want to come along to the Derby, we've got the whole place booked up and big event on there to watch Derby as well.
Terrific, and hopefully no injuries for any of the guys who are out there playing in that one either.
Yep.
I suppose for some of them it'll only be a once-a-year game, so the body might be a bit sore the next day. All right, that's pretty much it for this week. Thanks again for joining us, Seppo.
No worries, and just one final word. It's great to see, with Alex Savani players, we'll actually have 2 Alex out there, 2 Lockies and 3 Pierces, so getting the names going as well.
Yeah, combine that with all the St Kilda Jackson, it'll be a fair
Name
chance
fest.
there.
Yep.
All right, that's it for this week. Thanks again for listening, and just a reminder, you can listen to it on the website or you can download from iTunes. And next week, the big Derby, and we'll hopefully preview that after a good win against the Saints. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week. Bye for now.